This is a recording of the Alcoholics Anonymous Traditions Workshop presented during the 2017 Fall Retreat of Matt Talbot, Group 19, held at Malvern Retreat House, Malvern, Pennsylvania. The presenter of the workshop is Eddie J. of South New Jersey.
Hey everybody, my name's Ed, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey.
We're going to run through these 12 traditions. If you can think of anything while I'm going through this, jump in here. If you want to add anything, delete anything, criticize anything, help yourself. I'm going to read the traditions out of the front of the 12 and 12. There's the long form in the front. There's a long form in the front and there's a long form in the back. Tradition 1, our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. Without unity, AA dies. Individual liberty, yet great unity. Key to paradox. Each AA's life depends on obedience to spiritual principles. The group must survive or the individual will not. Common welfare comes first. How best to live and work together as groups. So the only reason we're all together is because of our one common bond, alcoholism. We have no other reason to interact with each other. But we do have this common bond that unites us. And when a new person comes in, that's what attracts us to that new person, is we really want to give them what we got. So the unity, and as far as the group is concerned, you know, I belong to a traditions group, and I also belong to my home group is actually the other path of spirituality. We have different belief systems. At the Tuesday meeting, we have Wiccans, we have Buddhists, we have Christians, we have, what else? A Jew? Yeah. We have a Jew in there. And we have all these different beliefs and all these different spiritual roads that we're on, but we're united on this one common bond. We all want to get sober. So unity is like, without you guys, we can't make it. Without us sticking together, we don't have a chance. How does that apply to my personal life and my professional life? If I'm working at a widget factory, our common goal is to make widgets. We need to make the best widgets we can. We all need to work together to do that. So our unity now becomes our common bond. What are we doing there? What's everybody's goal? What unites us? And if you take that into the family, into the personal life, into your personal life, as a family, what unites you? First of all, it's blood. You know, we're united because of our heritage. But how do we stay united? And one of the big problems I had was my family unit was not a unit. There was no unity there. One of the common threads in my family was to divide us. My mother spent a lot of time dividing us. If she was mad at my brother Joe, and I talked to my brother Joe, she'd get mad at me for talking to my brother Joe. Even though I wasn't upset with him, I had no reason to be angry with him. But that's the way she operated. And I don't know why, and I don't know how, but that led into my adult life to where I have family members that if I see them once a year, it's a lot. We just don't see each other a lot. We have no reason not to. We're not angry with each other. We just don't have the unity that most family members have. So when I started raising my family, when I started to become a father and I had my own, it was a challenge for me to figure out how to do this. What are we all united for? We got one common goal, to survive as a family. So fortunately, by the time I got to my second ex-wife, who was my favorite ex-wife, I had come to AA. She had gone to Al-Anon. The kids went to Alateen. The dog went to Alapet. We were all in recovery. And so we started to have this common bond where we were trying to become better people. And the program started to filter through our house. So the first tradition started to become a practice for us. The second tradition is, for our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. Where does AA get its direction? Sole authority in AA is loving God as he may express himself in the group conscience. Formation of a group, growing pains, rotating committees are servants of the group. Leaders do not govern, they serve. Does AA have a real leadership, elder statesmen and bleeding deacons? The group conscience speaks. So the second tradition really, we don't have any bosses in AA. We don't have any real control over anybody. You're a member if you say you are. Leaders are the trusted servants. Some of the things that I've seen over the years, and I've always been involved in service, is that we get the same people who are in positions who just they rotate, but they don't rotate out. They rotate within that unit and they stay in that unit. And it really becomes stagnant. So we really need new people, especially younger people, to learn these traditions, to get involved at the group level and start to take some of these positions. And it really is a shame because some of the older people can't find anybody to actually step in. Right now, Intergroup is in the process of elections. And if you look at the nominees, they're people who held other positions at Intergroup, who are just changing seats. They're still at the intergroup level, they're just changing seats. They're moving from chairperson to secretary, from secretary to treasurer. And they rotate chairs rather than rotating out. And so they really become empowered. I saw it happen with Area 45. I saw it happen with the convention committee, where nobody gets involved. And this is our program. We really need to have new people get involved in this fellowship. I have always been involved in service. My sponsor was very emphatic about that. Who is the ultimate authority in our family? Anybody here got a baby less than 3 years old? Yeah. Who's the ultimate authority? That 3-year-old runs the show. If you got a baby in the house, that's your ultimate authority. You like to think you're in charge, but you ain't got no say in it. That kid gets what it wants. And so in a family unit, who really is in charge? And I think that caused me a lot of problems in my life because I always felt like it was me, instead of allowing everybody in the family to have a say in what went on. There was no ultimate authority. So if I look at the workplace, you look at your employer. Who's the ultimate authority? Your boss. Your boss has a say in what's going on. So, you got an obligation. Other than that, in your home and in recovery, there's but one ultimate authority, a loving God. How did that help me personally? I struggled with the God concept. I couldn't pinpoint this God, whatever it was. But this tradition said to me, if I want to hear a message from God, I need to be at the group. I need to be in your company, because that's where I'm going to hear the message. The message is expressed in the group conscience. And group conscience is an interesting thing. How many people are active with your group at an active level? So you know what a group conscience meeting is. We would have a group conscience meeting, and it used to be historical, and Wayne, some of the older guys remember. We'd have an intergroup meeting that lasted for 3 hours. There'd actually be fist fights, chairs going, and then we all brush ourselves off, hold hands, and say the Lord's Prayer. By the end of it, when we started as the men's, there were 9 of us. 2 people out of the 9 did not want to start that group. They didn't want anything to do with it. They thought Monday night was a bad night. We had Monday Night Football. But because the other 7 did, they decided that they would go with the group conscience, which is how Ash and Men's got started. So what I've learned from that is, you know what, even if I think my idea is the best, I really need to follow the example of the people who are telling me what I may need to hear. So the same thing applies again to your family too. What's the best thing for the family? How do you plan a vacation? Is the family involved? Where do you want to go? How are we going to do it? When do we leave? When are we coming home? What are your days off? What are your days off? So when you start to include the family and making some of them decisions, the group conscience starts to take hold in the household, in the family. And guess what? They feel like they're a part of it. Instead of just shoving them into the car and telling them where they're going, give them an opportunity to express where they want to go and what they want to do. Allow them the opportunity. Tradition 3. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. Early intolerance based on fear. To take away an alcoholic's chance at AA was sometimes to pronounce his death sentence. Membership regulations abandoned. 2 examples of experience. Any alcoholic is a member of AA when he says so. You can't keep anybody out. So if I look at this tradition in my personal life, what's the requirement to be a part of my life? Do I have requirements? Is there a requirement to be a friend? Well, the first requirement is you need to be sober. If you're in AA and you're drinking, I can no longer have a friendship or a relationship with you because we've lost our common bond. And I recently, I don't think he's here right now, but a friend of mine, a dear friend that I really cherished his friendship, went out drinking. And I told him, I really love you, and that's not fair to me because you're my friend and you've decided to drink, which means we can't be friends anymore. I can't be around you when you're drinking like that. So I do have requirements. There's a requirement to be a part of my life, to be involved in it. If you're not an alcoholic and you drink, that's fine. But we do have requirements. And if you look at your personal life and you look at your friends, what are some of the requirements that you expect from a friend? What's that?
Honesty.
Honesty, yeah. Unless you're married, then it's sort of honest. Yeah, but you do require somebody to be honest. They start lying to you, you got to sever the relationship. So the fact that AA is so open and we accept everybody. I was at a meeting one time and a guy said, do you remember when you would sit at the bar and you would get up to go to the bathroom and you come back and somebody stole your change? I said, yeah, I remember that. He said, you remember when you were at the bar and your wife was there and you'd walk away to get a pack of cigarettes and you come back and somebody's hitting on your wife? Yeah, I remember that. He said, well, they're all here now. So don't leave your change on the table because some of them are trying to get honest. But yeah, that's one of the requirements. What are the requirements to be your friend? And I don't know, I just like the third tradition. Tradition 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. Every group manages affairs as it pleases, except when AA as a whole is threatened. Is such liberty dangerous? The group, like the individual, must eventually conform to principles that guarantee survival. 2 storm signals. A group ought not do anything which would injure AA as a whole, nor affiliate itself with outside interest. An example of the AA Center didn't work. Most of you know, if you read the long form, that they tried to build the center, it was 3 floors, and it just didn't work. I think that when you look at tradition 4, and if I apply it to my home life, each family member is autonomous, except in matters affecting other family members. That really became a challenge, and was almost probably a major part of the demise of one of my marriages, was that my wife was so intertwined with the kids that the kids could make no mistake. They couldn't do anything wrong. And it's almost like, you know what, you got a right to drink, you got a right to do drugs, you got a right to steal, you're not going to do it while you're in this home. However, the autonomy exists this way. I have a friend now who has a 10-year-old who just found his Winky. Just came across it 2 weeks ago. I know that because he's taking 2 showers a day. He locks his door when he goes to bed, and you got to knock to get in. And he's got a right to his privacy. And we had that talk. Him and I had that talk. It's like, you've got a right. That's yours. You can do what you want. Don't let anybody else touch it. And we will honor the fact that you need privacy, that you need to be okay, that you can have your own private room. And, we used to, when I was with Francis, the kids were autonomous. They could eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on toast in the middle of their bed and get crumbs all over it. That was fine. They had to sleep with it. That was their room. They could do what they wanted. However, when they come out and messed up the dishes in the sink in the kitchen, that started to affect the family as a whole. So now you've got to clean up your mess, because now you're in my territory and you're infringing on other people's rights. So your autonomy is good in your room, in your space, but when it affects the family as a whole, and one of the kids was a drug addict, alcoholic, he ended up getting killed in a motorcycle accident. He had a right to do that, but we had to forbid him from being in the home when he was under the influence. We had a right to do that because him being in that house while he was under the influence affected the rest of us. And when you start to hide your money and lock your room and lock your jewelry up from your own children, that's affecting the family as a whole. And decisions needed to be made. And one of the decisions we made was he needed to get out of the house. We gave him a date. We told him he either needed to stop drinking and drugging or he needed to leave the house. What do you think he chose? He moved out. 3 years later, he was dead. We didn't want him to die. We didn't give him permission to do that. But he had a right to do that. He had a right to drink and drug and ride his motorcycle drunk. So his autonomy now became a problem for him. We were always there for him, but he needed to do it on his own. So each family member is autonomous except in matters affecting other family members as a whole. Tradition 5, each group has but one primary purpose: to carry the message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Better do one thing well than many badly. The life of our fellowship depends on this principle. The ability of each AA to identify himself with and bring recovery to the newcomer is a gift from God. Passing on this gift to others is our one aim. Sobriety can't be kept unless it is given away. We're back to our primary purpose. So we have one purpose as far as these traditions are concerned, and that's to carry the AA message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Not my message, but the AA message, the big book message, the way it was taught to me. And I think that, I don't want to be judgmental, but there are people in the fellowship who have been around for a long, long time who have no idea about the traditions. This is called the 12 and 12. It's not just the 12. When I have a personal problem, there's something personally wrong with me, Bitch and John used to say, was it Bitch and John, or used to say, run it through the steps? Goldie, Tom Goldie, run it through the steps. You got a problem, run it through the steps. You got a problem, run it through the steps. That doesn't necessarily work when I got a problem outside of me. That's when I got to run it through the traditions. How do the traditions apply to this relationship? Because that's what the traditions are all about. They're about us interacting with each other. They're about us being outside of ourselves, about us being at work, about the family interaction, about the dynamics of our friendships. So the traditions are the other half of the program. And my sponsor was pretty emphatic about me learning the traditions early in my recovery, getting involved in service, carrying the message, 12-step work. So everybody I sponsor goes through the traditions. We go through the traditions just like we would the steps. They're really significant. What's your primary purpose at work? Same thing. If you're a widget manufacturer, make widgets. That's your primary purpose. Make the best widgets you can. If you're a construction worker, do the best job you can. You're representing Alcoholics Anonymous, if people know. So if you're doing the best you can, you're carrying a good message, and you're sticking to your primary purpose, making widgets. I don't know where widgets come from. Do they still make widgets? Interrupt me anytime you want. Tradition 6. An AA group would never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name, to any related facility or outside enterprise. Thus, problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. Experience proved that we could not endorse any related enterprise, no matter how good. We could not be all things to all men. We saw that we could not lend the AA name to any outside activity. That's pretty self-explanatory. And that's being done. there's a clubhouse that just opened, and the meetings at the clubhouse are meetings, they're not groups. And they contribute nothing to AA, to World Service, to Area 45. They're meetings that solely support the clubhouse, which is an outside entity. So they're actually having meetings that are affiliated with the clubhouse. That's why they have them. So as a result of the difference between a meeting and a group is, you can't get a job at a meeting. You can't become an intergroup rep. You can't become a GSR. You get no employment there. And if you're out of work, we got some good jobs in AA, and the pay is awesome. So, how does it apply to my personal life? I don't lend my name to any outside facility. If you need a plumber and I tell you, hey, this guy I use is good, man, and he's not expensive, he does a really good job, and I recommend him, and you call him, and I find out that he charges me a different price than he charges you. Now you're pissed off at me because I told you he's really good and he's inexpensive. You're pissed off at him because you feel like he charged you too much, and nobody wins. So when somebody asks me if I know a good plumber, I tell them, yeah, look it up. Look in the yellow pages. You'll find one. I used to recommend attorneys to people. Well, I don't want to bring that up then. You know, a good attorney, yeah, this guy really helped me out. If things don't work out right, I lent my name to him. I really did. I attached my name to something that I think is going to work out, and it turns out not working out. So I ended up losing a friend, losing a good plumber. So I don't lend my name to any related facility. It sounds weird, doesn't it? I just don't do it. It's bit me more times than not. Tradition 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. No AA tradition had the labor pains as this one did. Collective poverty, initially a matter of necessity. Fear of exploitation, necessity of separation, the spiritual from the material, decision to subsist on AA voluntary contributions only, placing the responsibility of supporting AA headquarters directly upon AA members, bear running expenses, plus a prudent reserve as headquarters policy. Bear running expenses. I know how to live like that. That's not new to me. Funny thing about this was when I was diagnosed with cancer, they said it was pretty terminal, they could treat me, keep me comfortable. I ran up my credit card $17,000, took out a bunch of loans, stopped paying my mortgage, and then they told me it was treatable. So now I'm screwed. I got $17,000 worth of credit card debt. I didn't pay my mortgage, I just barely got under the wire with that. I was going to go, and I'm using this as an extreme example. I had every reason to go bankrupt when I went through my second divorce. There was just financial issues that couldn't be resolved. And I talked to my sponsor about it. And he said, Ed, there's a tradition here. You borrowed that money. They actually repossessed my van out of my driveway on a Sunday morning. And he said to me, they didn't repossess your van. They took back their van. You made a promise. I was there when you signed the papers. You said you're going to pay them. You didn't do that. So when can you get the van back? I said, well, I can't get it back till Monday. I got it at the bank. He said, well, then Monday we'll worry about it. He said, but you made a commitment, and the seventh tradition says you need to honor that. Isn't that awful? Now I'm talking about going bankrupt, and he said, is that the only way you can get out of this, or can you call your creditors and ask for some compensation or some leniency? And I found out that my mortgage company was willing to set me back 3 months without making a mortgage payment. They tack it on the end. That my credit card companies were willing to take minimum amounts of money. And I was able to get out of debt and get my credit score back up to where I'm comfortable with it now, to where I have an excellent credit score. Because of this seventh tradition, I applied it to my personal life. You know, I'm on Facebook, and I get these messages that if you pray real hard, in 8 days you will come into a lot of money. And I was respond, if I work real hard Monday to Friday, every 5 days I'll get a check. So don't wait for God to drop off some money, get a job. Get a job. That was one of the requirements in our house. Once you graduated high school, if you weren't going to college, you needed to get a job. And you needed to become self-supporting, which means you had to pay rent. You had to start taking care of your responsibility in our house. We would actually have a group conscience meeting every Thursday. We'd have dinner, and the whole family would sit around a table, and we would discuss our jobs in the house, out of the house, who was taking out the trash, who was doing the dishes, who was cleaning up the dog shit. We all had assignments. And we'd have a group conscience meeting, and we all had work to do. And that helped support the family. There's a lot of work to maintain a family, a lot of work. And if everybody pulls their weight and does what they're supposed to, it runs pretty smoothly. The seventh tradition has always been a real spiritual program for me. I got on to creditkarma.com, and it was so exciting to watch my credit score go up because I was doing the right thing, just plain doing the right thing. Calling people, making my payments on time. Big deal. I didn't pay my electric bill until the pink one came. You know what they are. The white one don't mean shit. The yellow one don't mean nothing. When the pink one comes there, I would actually run out to the meter while the guy was taking it off and give him a bad check. I don't know if any of you did that, but today I look forward to it. I made a commitment to my ex-wife. She signed the house over me. After about 3 years, she decided to move out of the house, and she said, you know, if you want the house, I'll sign it over to you. You just pick up the mortgage. I didn't realize she had remortgaged it, so there was a pretty big nut on it. And I said to her, you know, once I get settled down and get caught up, I'll start sending you some money. You know, come up with a figure, $5,000 or something. I totally forgot about it for about 4 years. And one day she called me and said, you know, remember when we were at the cemetery and you promised you would send me some money? I said, oh yeah. She said, you never did, and I could really use it now. And guess what? I started sending her checks every chance I could. Happily sending her checks. And it wouldn't be much, $300, $400, whatever I could afford to send her, I would send her. And she was really grateful. And I really felt good about that, keeping up my end of the bargain. And that's the kind of spiritual stuff that I got out of this seventh tradition, just paying people what I owed them. Tradition 8, Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. You can't mix the 12-step and money. Excuse me. A line of cleavage between voluntary 12-step work and being paid for service. AA could not function without full-time service workers. Professional workers are not professional AAs. Relation to AA, to industry, education, etc. 12-step work is never paid for, but those who labor in service for us are worthy of their hire. Let me tell you something. How does this affect me personally? If you got domestic problems and I sponsor you and you come to me, first thing I remind you is I've been divorced 3 times. Second thing I tell you is get a counselor, hire a professional. We are not professionals in Alcoholics Anonymous, and some people get carried away with that. They think they got the answer for everything, when in reality some people actually need to seek professional help. They need to talk to an attorney, they need to talk to a counselor, they need to talk to a clergy person. We are not professionals. The only thing that we're absolutely positively good at is showing you how not to drink one day at a time. That's all I know. It's not that I don't have experience in other things. It's not that I can't share my experience. I just can't advise you on things that are out of my realm of thinking and out of my realm of education and treatment. So, you know, when I had 10 years ago, he got killed in a motorcycle accident. After about 10 months, I wasn't doing well at all. At all. I was going to meetings, I wasn't drinking, but that's about it. Sitting in the back of the room, not sharing, literally living like a butterfly in a cocoon. I just wanted to pull the covers over my head, not get involved. And my inner circle, the confreres, the guys I hung with, got together one day and said, "Ed, this may be too much for you. Maybe you need to seek professional help. Maybe you need to seek professional help." And I ended up putting myself in treatment. I went to Florida for 30 days to a facility that dealt with alcoholism and grief and loss. Of course, I didn't know how to deal with the grief. I had no tools. Because when my father died, I was 14, my mother told us, "You walk past your father's coffin, you say goodbye, I don't want to see a big scene." My brother died, you walk past your brother's coffin, you say goodbye, I don't want to see a big scene. When my other brother died, same thing. So all I knew to do when somebody died is walk past, say goodbye. When Daniel died, I couldn't do that anymore. That wasn't working. I needed to seek professional help. And thank God for them guys bringing that to my attention. So here I am, 10 years sober, not desiring to drink at all. The thought of a drink never entered my mind. But I needed to put myself into professional treatment. I needed to seek outside help. Best thing I ever did. Absolute best thing I ever did. Really learned about the 11th step, about prayer and meditation. So don't be afraid to go out to meet a professional. You know, one of the things that happens in this is, you know, I sponsor an electrician. When I need electrical work done, I call him. When he comes over to fix it, I pay him. That's his job. That's his livelihood. That's how he makes a living. He's a professional electrician. When I need him to help me move, he ain't getting a dime. Because that's not his profession. So if I need professional work done and you're a carpenter and I say to you, "Hey, can you come over and help me with some carpentry stuff?" I expect to pay you because that's what you do for a living. Now, he may not take it, but I'll somehow give him a gift certificate or take him out to dinner or somehow reimburse him for what he did for me. So the fact that he's a professional, I have to pay him for what he knows. And I think that sometimes we take advantage of people like that. There was a guy named Dino who said that, you know, we have enough talent in AA to build and run a city. And that's the truth. We have carpenters, electricians, mayors, councilmen, lawyers. Only one lawyer that I know of that is honest enough to... That would be, yeah, who shall remain anonymous. Yeah, we don't use his last name, right, Mr. Hamburg? We just keep that. Anybody got any comments? Anything? Okay. Questions? Tradition 9. AA as such would never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. Special service boards and committees, the General Service Conference, the Board of Trustees, and a group committee cannot issue directives to AA members or groups. AAs can't be dictated to individually or collectively. Absence or coercion works because, wait a minute. Yeah, absence of coercion works because unless each AA follows suggested steps of recovery, he signs his own death warrant. Same conditions, same condition applies to the group. Suffering and love are AA's disciplinarians. Difference between spirit of authority and spirit of service. Aim of our services is to bring sobriety within the reach of all who want it. You know, we run, you are part of a multi-million-dollar organization. Alcoholics Anonymous World Service operates at a budget of well into the millions of dollars, and is supported by us. But before you get there, we have the group, first the individual, then we have the group, then we have the intergroup, then we have area, and then we have World Service. So there are all these committees that lead up to the World Service. Each one of those committees is run by us. We are it. We are in charge of a multi-million-dollar corporation. So if you're not getting involved in this, you're really cheating yourself. And we have all these, if you work in a corporation, the same thing occurs. You got the HR department, you got the finance department, you got the upper management, middle management, they all meet and they all make this thing happen. Well, that's what we have in AA. We have all these levels of cooperation and understanding that we need to be a part of. When you put the $2 or $3 in a basket, you need to know where it's going. You need to know that it's going to support world service so that this message can be carried. I don't know how many languages. Do you know, Lou, how many languages? I think there's 48 or 58 different languages the big book is in.
It's like 30 or 40 or something.
Yeah. If you go to New York, it's overwhelming, the stuff that they do up there, that they're mailing literature all over the world. It's part of a worldwide organization. Committees directly responsible for those they serve. The same thing happens in the household. I talked to you about, we had members of our household who had certain responsibilities. That was their committee. Daniel hated doing dishes, hated it, but he didn't mind cutting the grass. So that was pretty much his charge. He was in charge of cutting the grass. Denise, who liked doing dishes, took over the dishwasher part. I filled in wherever necessary. I liked doing laundry. I used to wash, dry, and fold the laundry. So we all had a job to do. And we were like individual committees that made this household function. That was our goal, to make the household function. The trash was put out on time, the dishes were done after dinner, the laundry was done, washed and folded, and my wife went out to work every day. One of us had to do it. I wasn't going to do it. Tradition 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion outside issues, hence the AA name will never be drawn in a public controversy. AA does not take sides in any public controversy. Reluctance to fight is not a special virtue. Survival and spread of AA are our primary aim. Lessons learned from Washingtonian's movement. This is so effective in this age and time. It saves me so much aggravation. I don't have an opinion on a football team. I don't have an opinion on who the president is. I don't have an opinion on any of that stuff. It's outside of my realm. Saves me a lot of fights on Facebook. You get on Facebook and it's about the gun laws and about the president did this, and I just stay out of it. And it's very peaceful for me. I had a friend who was on Facebook who was so opinionated that I just couldn't continue to friend him on Facebook. His opinions were disturbing to me. So I just decided, you know what, I can't get caught up in this, because if I do, once I respond, I'm in the middle of it. Very much unlike the old barroom days. We had an opinion on everything. And ours was the only true way to deal with it, true opinion. So not having an opinion on outside issues is a gift. It's really a gift. When you can sit there and say, you know what, I just don't have an opinion on that. I just don't have an opinion. Tradition 11, our public relations policy. What?
Could you touch on the Washingtonian movement just a little bit?
One of the things that happened at the Washingtonians was they got involved in things that weren't about recovery. They started to they had the wet and the dry league where it was during Prohibition. So who was supporting Prohibition, who was supporting selling alcohol, and they really fragmented. They just got fragmented because they were Democrats versus Republicans. If we get involved in this sort of stuff, and one of the wonderful things about AA is it doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. It doesn't matter what race or creed you are. You're here, and we have no opinion on that. And what's wonderful about it is we have all these religious battles going on with the Muslims and the Palestinians with the Jews. We just stay out of that. And when they came to World Service and asked to print the big book, was it Palestine? They just came and asked us to print the big book. I think it was Palestine just approached us and asked us to print the big book so that they could have meetings over there. Starts to overstep every boundary that you could imagine. I had an opportunity. I'm one of the few guys that when the Jehovah Witnesses knock on my door, I invite them in. And I actually sit down with them. And I remember the guy said, he came in my house, and I said, well, what do you want to talk about? He said, I don't know. Nobody ever invited me in before. But one of the things that happened was we started talking about the situation throughout the world. And he said to me, Ed, when do you think this will stop? I said, when everybody finds a 12-step program. Because we bypass all that stuff. We are our own society. It says in the big book, we're a society. We have our own language. We have our own demeanor. You know, you can see an alcoholic in the ShopRite and say a couple things, and you know they're in AA, they know you're in AA, because we exchange a few words that are part of our culture, part of our society. So our society, the society that Bill and Bob, from the mistakes of the Washingtonians, from the 6 tenets, when they stopped practicing those 6 tenets and started to drift off into other areas, it folded. And Bill says that if AA is going to have problems, they're going to happen from within. We're going to start fighting among ourselves. So no matter what, it's such an awesome experience to travel to a different area or a different country and walk into an AA meeting and know you're home. Know you're home. Doesn't matter the language, doesn't matter the color of the skin, doesn't matter the culture. You're home. We have that common thread. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way. There's no opinion on outside. Where am I? Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need to always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and film. And now they're developing a new one on social media. Public relations are important to AA. Good public relations save lives. We seek publicity for AA principals, not AA members. The press has cooperated. Personal anonymity at the public level is the cornerstone of our public relations policy. 11th tradition is a constant reminder that personal ambition has no place in AA. Each member becomes an active guardian of our fellowship. I was talking to somebody during a break that the pinnacle of my success is that I'm famous in an anonymous program. Every loser in South Jersey knows who I am. And most of them know where I live. And I'm really proud of that because when we start to look at attraction rather than promotion, and you look at your friends and you look at who you associate with, and you say to yourself, what's so attractive about them? Why do I want to hang with them? Why do they want to hang with me? What do we got going on? And I start to draw people towards me, and I'm drawn towards people because of their behavior, because something about them attracted me. I was at a meeting earlier, and there was a young guy sharing, and when we were done, we all split up, and I happened to mention to Craig, geez, I feel like I should have went and talked to that guy. There was something that attracted me about that young man that I just wanted to be a part of. And I went over and shook his hand, and we started talking. And that's the way this attraction rather than promotion works. There's people in here that I have no desire to be around. Wayne, one of them. But if you look at people, and I say that, yes, you know, what is it about Wayne that's so attractive? It's the way he carries himself, his humility. It's his knowledge of this thing. It's the way he lives. And as an AA member, we are definitely responsible for being responsible. We're responsible for being attractive to other people so that they too can find this fellowship. And we are attraction rather than promotion. We don't walk around telling people at Wawa, hey, come on with me, I'm in AA. It's like you can see somebody struggling. There's something attractive about that. We need fresh drunks. We don't have enough fresh drunks anymore. Fresh drunks used to be a dime a dozen. So who do I attract and who attracts me? And it's usually something that we have in common besides recovery. that we do things and become friends. Tradition 12. Yes?
Can you talk about tradition 11 as it relates to social media at all?
At the what?
As it relates to social media at all?
Social media?
Yes.
Alcoholics Anonymous World Service right now is working on a concept on social media. It's a whole new thing. And you know what, we'll talk about that on anonymity. I think that's more of an anonymity issue than it is a policy. So let's bring that up onto this tradition. Tradition 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions. They're reminding us to place principles before personalities. Nothing I have is contagious, guys. Well, this one area is, but you probably won't come in contact with that. The spiritual substance of anonymity is sacrifice. Subordinating personal aims to the common good is the essence of all the 12 traditions. Why AA could not remain a secret society. Principles come before personalities. 100% anonymity at the public level. Anonymity is real humility. Anonymity is probably one of the greatest gifts you'll experience in here. Because it's just not using my last name in a meeting. That's such bullshit. We should actually be using our last names at meetings. You can't break somebody's anonymity in AA. You can only break it outside of AA. And they talk about the level of press, radio, film, and now they're talking about social media. When I go on social media, it's scary. Because what happens with anonymity, it's not just my personal anonymity. You're now talking about my daughter, my family members, my wife. Do they really want their friends to know that I'm an alcoholic? My former wife, my second ex-wife, my favorite, I talk about her the most. She worked for Payne Weber, which is a large corporation investment broker in New York. For her supervisor to know that she was married to an alcoholic would have been detrimental to her employment. Not necessarily mine, because she was investing millions of dollars, overnight sometimes. And the last thing they wanted to know was that her husband was a drug addict or alcoholic. Of course, they're trusting her with all these funds to be able to move money around. So when I look at anonymity, I can say, and I hear it at meetings all the time, I don't care who knows I'm in AA, I'm not hiding my anonymity. Maybe you better think twice about that. What's your wife think about that? What's your mother think about that? What's your father think about it? What do your children think about that? I had my daughter asked me to come speak at her class. She was in 6th or 7th grade, and they were studying addictions in their sociology class. And she asked me to come speak to her class about Alcoholics Anonymous. And my first question was, Stacy, do you really want your friends to know that your dad's an alcoholic? And her response was, yeah, I'm okay with that. Because she knows what AA did for her and her life and my life. And I think that, to give you an example of that, at her wedding, we had a guest list of about 150, 160, and we had gone over our limit. And I had, I think, 7 full tables of AA members. And I told my daughter, listen, we got to cut back on some of these guests. I'm going to eliminate some of my AA friends. And her response was, Daddy, I want them there. They're the ones who gave you back to me. So my daughter has a very high regard for you people, even though she don't know most of your last names. When somebody would call and ask where I was if I was home, she'd say, nah, he's out with them easy does it people. She didn't tell him I was in AA. She didn't say I was an alcoholic. She just said he's out with them easy does it people. So I needed to protect my family. And if I'm on Facebook, and my daughter's on Facebook, and my family's on Facebook, and I start to talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, I just blew all their anonymity. And they have these closed groups, you see Friends of Bill and this one and that one. They're supposed to be closed groups for alcoholics only. But how did they get my name? How did they come to friend me if they're not supposed to know and people aren't supposed to, you know what I mean? So social media really becomes a challenge for us. We need to protect ourselves and others. And when we start friending people and we're talking about, You know, I got 35 years of sobriety coming up. Tuesday, I'll celebrate 35 years. I may put that on Facebook. Today, I have 35 years. That's it. People who are in AA will know what I'm talking about. Because we have this society. We have this secret language. If I just celebrated 35 years in Alcoholics Anonymous, I just violated that tradition. Just violated it at the level of press, radio, film, and social media. Did you have a particular question about that? Was there a concern you had?
More or less specifically about celebrations and stuff, like, and how
Yeah.
people that are connected or friendly to me, like my family members, and then maybe even jobs down the road, like it becomes an
Absolutely. Did everybody hear what he said? He has social media where his friends are talking about Alcoholics Anonymous, how it could affect his potential for a job down the road. Because when you're being interviewed for a job now, they want to see your Facebook page.
Wow.
Good, Lou.
I mean, I can touch on that a little bit from my end of things, you know. I run like a family construction business. We do corporate, commercial. I do work for Sunoco. I do work for BP. I do work for Wawa. I do work for these big corporations. Now, I don't like, I don't reveal my anonymity on Facebook because what if the project managers that are on my Facebook profile see that I'm an AA and that stigma of an alcoholic comes to light and they'll be like, fuck, I don't want to hire Lou Sarlo anymore, he's an alcoholic. I have 9 other guys in my company that work for me. That's going to affect all of their pocketbooks. Their families are going to suffer because I revealed my anonymity and now they're out of a job. That's selfish for me and not also like my company for people to know that I'm an alcoholic at a public level.
Alcoholism still has a stigma attached to it. And if you think it don't, try and get a gun permit. I have a permit to carry a gun, and I have to fill it out every year. I have to jump through hoops to keep my permit updated. And 2 questions that they ask. Number 1 is, are you an alcoholic? And it has a yes or no check. If I check yes, I'll never carry a gun in the state of New Jersey. Because it don't say, are you recovering? Okay.
Yes, it does. They changed the permit. It says if you're a recovered alcoholic, you can check no to this.
I don't carry a permit.
Well,
Not
we
really
can't
carry.
well, we can't get carry permits pretty much anywhere in New Jersey.
Carry permit hasn't changed. The carry permit still says, are you an
I'm
alcoholic?
sorry, but you would say
But
go.
no, that's good information.
Okay.
But let me tell you the problem again.
On the flip side of that, you have to remember that there was a story about a guy who was putting stuff on Facebook that he's working the steps and he's celebrating 2 years and he's doing really good at AA. And so all the people that know nothing about AA, right? This is what you have to remember: the people that know nothing about AA think the guy's doing really good, and then 2 weeks later the guy puts on there, "Oh my God, I relapsed. I can't stop drinking." And all the people that don't know nothing about AA, their first thought is, that AA shit don't work.
It don't work.
And that's what we have to be mindful of, is the people that don't know the inside and outside of AA immediately think this thing's on the front and you put down if I keep relapsing or whatever like that.
Yeah.
That's another mindful thing you got to do.
Before you hit send on that thing, you need to think of who is this affecting? Who else is this affecting? And we talked about the stigma. On my gun permit, it says, oh, you're an alcoholic. I checked no. Because if I say yes, they're not going to let me carry a gun ever. The next question is, have you ever been in a mental institution? I can check yes to that and still get a gun permit. So they think more of the institution people than they do of an alcoholic. We're one step lower. So I can say, yeah, I spent time in that course, like, prove that you're okay. My doctor did that, I'm okay. If I put alcoholic, I'm done. And I used to be a cop, so I know, man, it's like the same thing with domestic violence. I stopped beating my wife over that. Right? I didn't completely stop, but she deserved it, she got it. But I'm kidding. This is being recorded, I forgot. I gotta take that off, okay? Yeah, what was it?
Just one more thing on the gun thing. When I first started getting sober, I wanted all my doctors to be in the loop, on my recovery. So this way I have open, conversations,
Right.
medication and things. And, there was an election 8 years ago, somebody else was sworn in the presidential office, and there was a lot of concern over as far as what was going to happen with guns. And I talked to my doctor about it. I said, look, I don't want this. I want you to know. I said, but I don't want it in my record. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a responsible gun owner, Second Amendment. And she said, you told me. She said, I have to put it in there. She said, but I'm also going to put a comment that my patient is a responsible gun owner, but whatever bullshit that might help me if the laws change and they want to start whether that'll help me or not, it's kind of like a catch-22. I'm going to be honest with the doctor, but at the same token, I don't want to jeopardize my right to have a firearm.
It will follow you. One of the reasons I went to the rehab I went to was because it was a psychiatric hospital that treated addiction. So they didn't know whether I was in there for depression, which is actually what I was in there for, brief loss depression, but they also treated the alcoholism, so I did step work while I was there. But if I went into just a plain rehab or a detox, it would have cost me my gun permit. So you really need to protect yourself. You're doing great, man. Why would you want to blow it over some social media event where somebody, a new employer, a potential employer, is going to hold your Facebook page and see that you're an alcoholic and have that stigma attached to it, like Lou talked about. People just don't buy into this. They still think, and they're right, that, I went to court with a guy who the judge said to me, I said he was in recovery, I was vouching for him, he says, can you guarantee me that this guy's not going to drink again? I said, no, I can't, Judge. I said, I'm going to get a crystal ball and wisdom of Solomon and I know how this guy's going to do next week. I know if he does what he's doing now, he'll stay sober. And the judge bought that. We really do have a lot of responsibility when it comes to this anonymity and who we're going to back and who we're going to endorse and who we're going to protect. The last thing I'll say about anonymity is that I was very sick recently. I couldn't eat. I didn't eat for 3 days. I had no appetite. I was on chemotherapy. And somebody came by my house and they had grown Jersey tomatoes, beautiful red, ripe Jersey tomatoes, and they hung them on my door. And I love Jersey tomatoes. And I ate that day because when I got home, I cut them tomatoes up and put them on a bedroll. For the first time in 3 days, I ate. That's what we're talking about. What are we doing for each other anonymously? One of my friends in here was dropping soup off. Soup that I could swallow. It wasn't beef. It was pea soup. It was noodle soup. It was stuff that I could swallow. That's what we do for each other. That's what this anonymity is about. What are we doing kind for each other? What are we doing that we're not opening our mouth? I was at a carnival. I was recently sober, maybe about 1.5 years, 2 years. I was at a carnival with my wife in Williamstown, and there was a woman there with these special needs adults. And they all had little hankies and little purses, and they were counting pennies to buy tickets for the rides. And I went over and I gave her $50. And I said, here, let the guys go over to the rides and might use it. That felt so good. And then I went and told my wife what I did, and I didn't feel good anymore. If I had kept my mouth shut and done that anonymously, I could still cherish that moment. So once I shoot my mouth off and tell people what I did, I lose it. So I'd like to close with thank you so much for your attention. Please don't underestimate the power of these traditions in your life. Not just in your group, not just in a group, but in your personal life. If you have a problem with a domestic problem with the wife, the kids, and the family, look at the traditions. They'll show you how to live harmoniously with each other. Oh, that's our thank you, thank you. belongs to whoever.
Had the opportunity and the privilege of working with him for a number of years, and you know, I've learned a lot from him under his guidance and direction and, you know, encouragement. He's got a message of recovery. You know, he lives it, he walks it. He can also talk it too. I've been meaning to try to get him a contract for a stand-up comic, so you may be entertained far as, you know, some humor tonight. You know, but he has a hell of a message. Without any further ado, please help me welcome Eddie J.
Thanks. This is great. It's really scary. Everybody should have the opportunity to know what it's like to stand up here and have gas and heartburn and want to throw up all at the same time. I want to take a page out of Cornell's story. When I brought the suit, but I went to put it on, the button popped off. I picked up my briefcase and the handle popped off. I've been afraid to pee all day. Now, the really frightening part about that was I told Wayne I got to go buy a jacket somewhere. He said, I'll help you pick one out. So. I told you, that's all right. I'll find a little shop by myself. My name's Ed and I'm an alcoholic. It's a real honor and a privilege to be here and take you on a little trip with me. I'm not a first-timer in AA. I came around when I was 25 years old, and you know what that's like. You're way too young. I kind of liked the people, liked the message, but I wasn't ready. And back in them days, AA's going through some major changes, and I don't even know if I could get sober today with all the rules they got. The men stay with the men and the women stay with the women. Where the hell did that come from? My sponsor used to tell me, see that girl over there? You keep coming around long enough, you could be with her. Like, I'd go to that meeting just to see. 90 and 90, all that stuff. It's all good stuff. It just wasn't here. I didn't have any rules. My sponsor told me you don't drink. So you can do anything you want in Alcoholics Anonymous. You can't drink. You can cheat on your wife, you can steal, you can rob. He said you just can't drink. He said, and I suggest that you do that early in your recovery. He said, because eventually you'll develop a conscience and you won't be able to do that anymore. So I'm waiting for that to happen. I know it will, because he always told me the truth. But then again, he used to lie to me, too. I remember when I was new in recovery, and he'd say, look, Ed, I'm going to a meeting this afternoon, going right by your house. Why don't I just stop and pick you up? I said, all right. Now, he lived in one part of Jersey. I lived in the other part of Jersey, and the meeting was over here. So how he passed my house going to that meeting, I have no idea. But we did good old-fashioned 12-step work there. I didn't get sober in a rehab. I didn't afford myself the opportunity. And I got sober sitting in these rooms with these people, and I don't recommend it. If you got a chance to go to rehab, do it. But and I owned a bar when I came into AA. And they used to talk about people, places, and things. Stay out of bars, stay away from booze. And I'd get done to meet and go to the bar and work. I don't recommend that either. But I stayed sober, and the funny part about that was I'm a retired cop from a little city in Camden, New Jersey, which we were number one in the nation for crime for a lot of years, and that was about the only thing we were number one in. And when I retired, we went down to number 2. I stopped stealing and shit. And it wasn't easy being a drunk cop. I didn't lock too many people up because it took me off the street, and the six-pack was in the car. So The only guy I ever did lock up, he cut in front of me and locked his brakes, and I jammed mine on my six-pack, went flying, and I thought, I don't have to take this. So I locked him up, and we're down there arguing. He's telling me, you're drunker than me. And the patrolman that was administering the breathalyzer, he said, why don't you take that breathalyzer? I said, I'll take it. And he's saying, you don't want to take it. And you know what an alcoholic is? I took it on a dare. I got a higher reading than him, and we started negotiating. I did some crazy things. Thank the good Lord that I didn't hurt anybody. Nobody got hurt. We got involved in a shootout one New Year's Eve. There was 107 shots fired from the police. We were at a New Year's Eve party when we got the call, and it was a hostage situation. A guy was shooting out the window at us, and we never even broke a window. One of us lost our radio when they first came out with the handheld radios, and some young kids running around saying, I'm over here, I'm over here. And I was a biker. I always had a motorcycle, and I used to get drunk, and I'd be in uniform, riding my motorcycle, driving home, and I'd shoot at the stop signs on the way by. John Wayne or something, just draw a shoot. I don't know how many stop signs I killed in New Jersey, but the scary part was when I thought they were shooting back at me. And I was driving a motorcycle home one day, and I got wiped out. I had my uniform on, and the bike spun around. I hit some sand, ended up in this driveway on this circle, and the bike was laying on my boot. We wore boots and breeches back then. I could smell my boot burning, and my gun was all scraped up from being drug on the ground, and a sober civilian come by to help. You all right, officer? I said, yeah, just help me get this thing off my boot. We picked up the motorcycle, and the handlebars were twisted this way, and I got on it. He said, you all right to drive? I said, certainly. It was back in the time when they were just starting the helmet laws, and they said that you had to wear a helmet, but there was really no description of what it needed to be or where to wear it. And I come up on this red light, and there's this warlock biker dude sitting in the light next to me, and I come pulling up. And he had a colander on his head upside down with a bungee cord going from one side to the other, and drove away. And that started to happen a lot with me with the motorcycle. I'd wake up in the hospital, motorcycle would be towed away. I'd be all stitched up and broken ribs and broken collarbones and broken arms. And I thought, I got to stop riding. You know, you make these decisions that are healthy. And my drinking progressed, obviously, and we had a strip along there called Admiral Wilson Boulevard. It was all bars, go-go bars up and down the strip. My sergeant called me and he said, you know, that's not your beat. He said, I always see your car parked in the parking lot, and that's not your beat. After about 3 weeks of that, he finally came in and called me and said, look, your beat is now the boulevard. Law enforcement's an interesting community where we take care of each other to a fault. While they were taking care of me, my wife and my kids were home wondering what condition I'd be in if I got home. And, you know, they're the real heroes in this program. Any Al-Anons in here? Oh, all right. Thanks for having the courage to raise your hand. That's Dr. Paul O said that's the best program of them all. You got the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, the 12 concepts, the meetings, and you can drink. Heard an Al-Anon speaker say one time, anybody can go to AA, you need to know somebody to go to Al-Anon. Wasn't for us, you wouldn't even need them meetings. But they are the unsung heroes, the Al-Anons, the children, the spouses, the partners that watch us go through this. Can't do anything about it. And, I had one of my ex-wives, I've had 3 of them, so I don't do well in relationships. I think it says that somewhere in a big book. But she said to me, you need to quit drinking or leave. Yeah, what's that? So I packed. I remember my daughter, she was 5 years old, she said, Daddy, I don't want you to leave. You know what I told her? I said, your mom's making me. Not once did I say alcohol was making me. Not once did I say your mom gave me a choice. Of course, to me, it didn't seem like a choice. And I walked out of the house and I packed all the booze I had in there in the trunk. And took a brand new suit that I had just bought and put it on, went out and spent the rest of the money I had, and got drunk and got depressed and got suicidal, and decided that I would drive my car 100 miles an hour down Atlantic City Expressway and just open the door and bail out. Now, it's funny about alcohol because the one thing that stopped me was I thought, this is a new suit. And I knew she wasn't going to buy another one to lay me out in. So I did the next best thing. I drove myself to a local mental institution called Ancora. Now, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm drunk, banging on the doors trying to get in. There's about 80 people banging on the windows trying to get out. Now, if you think you're crazy, check into one of them places. And it's hard to get your gun and badge back from the chief when you got to explain why you spent 22 days in a mental institution. I remember in there that I had a woman psychiatrist, and she said to me, I think drinking may be a problem for you. I said, all right. Now remember, I got a trunk full of booze, so we finally agreed that I should be out of there, and I went out and got a 5th of scotch out of the trunk of my car. Hadn't been opened yet. I went in and sat on her desk. I said, I don't need this anymore. She said, all right, Ed. And I drank the beer on the way home. It's like Cornell said, it's like the beer ain't going to hurt me. And the drinking progressed, and the family suffered, and, one of the myths in AA is that there are no dues or fees for membership, but we pay a dear price for these seats, and it's a very exclusive club. You belong here. And not only do we pay a price, but the loved ones around us pay a price. Everybody pays a price. And I came from a, dysfunctional family. Bill Knoll says he came from a dysfunctional community, but, my father was an alcoholic. My mother was not an alcoholic, but I wish she'd have drank. Explain some of that behavior. And there were 6 of us, and, Dad was in and out of work all the time because of the drinking, and, Mom struggled to keep us going, and Dad drank King Sherry wine. I remember we were at a meeting, and I think wine is an interesting alcohol. We were at a meeting in South Philly, the crew that I come down with, and when the guys introduced themselves, said, my name is Leroy, and I'm an alcoholic, and wine, ooh. Which is like a higher caliber of alcohol. AA has a funny social strata. It's like the lower you went in your drinking, the higher your esteem in AA. I was at a convention one time, and a guy was living on Skid Row for 15 years. I couldn't wait to meet him. Come here, kids. This guy was on Skid Row. Yeah, we do everything a little bit backwards here, but Dad used to hide the wine bottles down in the rafters in the cellar. We had coal heat back then, and one of my chores growing up was to put the ashes out on Tuesday night, and they'd pick them up at the curb on Wednesday. I think that's where Ash Wednesday started, actually. in Camden, and I remember finding a bunch of the wine bottles, and I the little residue in the bottom, I just kind of filled up a cap full, and I drank it, and I loved it. It was good going down, it smelled good, it tasted good, it felt good, and I knew what Dad did that for. It was good, and I think that, AA talks about, I had an addiction from the first time I picked up a drink, if not before then. And, the drinking progressed, the high school drinking and the throwing up and the passing out and the drinking and throwing up and passing out pretty much became the norm. And, after I got married, I met this girl in a bar. I was drunk, she was drunk. She asked her to marry me. I was drunk, she was drunk. The day of the wedding, I was 5 hours late because I was drunk and nobody could wake me up. And she waited for me. Some are sicker than others, and she didn't really have a drinking problem other than me. And so we got married, and I found myself with this family and this challenge to either get sober. And after I got out of the mental institution, I decided that I would try this AA thing, and that was my first introduction to AA. And like I said, I went to the meetings. I liked it. I liked what you people had. She and I got back together for a little bit, and I thought everything was okay. Might as well drink again. And that lasted for 10 years. I didn't go out on no slip. And the funny thing about it, a guy described a slip one time. He said, you go in the bathroom, go to the toilet, you come out drunk, that's a slip. He said, anything else is premeditated drunk. And I drank for the next 10 years. And, all the things that they said in AA would happen, happened. And a pretty good crew. We got a couple guys here with 30-plus years that were around when I came in the first time. And they had some hardcore AA. They just told you, listen, man, you're not ready. Go finish up your load. We'll wait for you. Now it's like, oh, I had a slip. Oh, welcome back. Oh, I had a slip. Welcome back. Oh, I had a slip. Get the hell out. Do it right. Come back when you're ready. Because it says in the big book that we need to cling to this program as only the dying can. And until you hit your bottom, it was ugly for me to be around you people when I wanted to drink more than I didn't. And in the interim, I met another wonderful woman. I must say that I had great women in my life. I love my ex-wives today. We communicate. We're good friends. Yeah. Hey, don't laugh. You could be my next ex-wife. Yeah, you don't care, right? I have a free dental plan, which usually all my exes have beautiful teeth, And I met this girl, and we had a relationship going, and the drinking progressed, and I came home drunk one night, and I woke up in bed in her townhouse with 3 cops standing around my bed pointing their guns at me, telling me not to move. And I can tell you this, if the judge would have said to me, tell me what you did and I'll let you go, I wouldn't have been able to tell him because I had no idea. No idea. I know what the charges read. They were pretty ugly. There was about 6 or 7 of them, and it certainly wasn't my kind of behavior. And being an ex-cop and who I was, you know how they take care of you. Took me down City Hall, let me sit there, sober up, sent me home again. I remember when I got back to her place, and I had maintained an apartment around the corner from her. I always did because I knew these things didn't last long, and I was going to get the boot. And I went back to her place, and she was laying across the bed pretending she was asleep. She did that a lot. And I started grabbing my stuff and throwing it in my matching paper bags, luggage, and she said, where are you going? What are you doing? I said, it's pretty obvious that you don't want me here, and I'm going to pack and leave. And this is where Al-Anon is such a powerful program. Because the pain it must have been for her to sign them charges against me, because she felt that was the best thing for me. And she said, you know, Ed, you promised if you couldn't quit drinking, you'd go back to that AA place. And I said, all right. So it was a Sunday morning, and I went to this clubhouse called the Cameron Club down in Camden when I first come around 10 years earlier, and I met this guy named Ed L., and I thought, well, he's probably not there, and the place probably ain't open. I don't know how, but somehow she had the phone number for the club. Surprisingly, somebody answered the phone and said, Cameron Club. I said, this is Ed Jordan. He said, this is Ed L. I said, Eddie, I need some help. He said, there's a meeting tonight. Why don't you meet me here? And that was October 17th, 1982, and I haven't had a drink since. Now, the miracle that you acknowledge AA like I do. The miracle of that is that I had been in and out of hospitals, in and out of psychiatric hospitals, in and out of psychiatrist offices. And I couldn't quit drinking. And they all knew it was a problem. I knew it was a problem. But none of them told me how to quit. They just told me I needed to. I got some good ideas, some suggestions. One psychiatrist told me to put 6 pennies in my pocket, and every time I have a drink, move it from one pocket to the other. You know what that's like. I didn't know what pocket I was working out of. I know when I was done, it seemed like I only had 2 or 3 because pockets didn't match up. And I went to that meeting, and I met this little guy named Mel H. And Mel H. was pissing and moaning about his wife, his kids, his dog had fleas, the house a mess, nobody put out the trash, and I thought, man, I like this guy. So all the rest of them were talking how beautiful life was, and God's good, and life is great, and I didn't want to hear that. And at that time, Mel had 14 years sober. And he was to become my sponsor, and he was just the greatest guy in my life. And I don't know if I could have got sober without Mel in my life. I don't know. But he kept this program so simple for me. And I think that my fear today is sometimes we just get it so complicated. It's about not drinking. That's the number one thing. And I remember him sitting at my kitchen table, and my wife was there, and his wife was there, and the kids were there, and we were talking about AA. And he said, Ed, you need to make AA the priority in your life right now. He said, it's got to come before your kids, before your job, before your church, before your family. He said, because if you pick up a drink, that's all gone. Whew. And I thought, wow, that's a commitment there. But it was so true, because every time I picked up a drink, things disappeared. They just kept going. Bikes, cars, motorcycles, houses, families, kids, wives, money. It just took and took and took. That's what I say about paying a dear price. My father died from alcoholism. 3 of my brothers are dead from alcoholism. I have a sister who's still alive, living in Baltimore, diagnosed with multiple personality disorder. I think she's got 6 or 8 personalities, which is all right with me because it's a long-distance call. I get to talk to all them people. Have dinner, just put one plate down, and all these conversations going on. Alcohol devastated my life from birth, and it ran rampant through my house, ran rampant through my family. And, on September 10th, 1992, I was 10 years sober, just short of 10 years sober, and my wife and I got the knock on the door to tell us that our 23-year-old son was killed in a motorcycle accident while drinking and driving. And it was a life-changing event, needless to say. And, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't call my mother. I didn't call my sisters or brothers. I didn't call anybody. I picked up the phone, and I called a friend of mine from Alcoholics Anonymous, Al B. And I said, Al, Daniel got killed this morning. He said, all right, Ed, I'll be right there. And he went in and told his boss he had to leave because his friend needed him. He left his job, and in about an hour and a half, my house was full of AA people and Al-Anon people. My refrigerator was full, and the coffee pot was going, and people were just hanging around getting us through this. And I don't know if me and Al B said 4 words, but for 4 days, every time I turned around, he was there. We just bumped into each other. And, we had to do these horrible things, go pick out a coffin, go buy some clothes. And we didn't have insurance on Daniel. The undertaker happened to be in the program. He said to me, hey, just pay for the coffin and the plot. He said, I'll take care of the rest. And it was about $2,500. And during the services, somebody come up and squeezed a check in my hand for $2,500, said, pay me when you get it. And, we were sitting there, after the funeral, we were sitting there in my house, and my in-laws had all come in from the West Coast, and we were hungry, and we were tired, and we didn't want to get dressed and go out, and we didn't feel like cooking, and this van pulled up in my driveway, and they started bringing in pasta and salad and coffee and juice and all this food, and I said to the driver, where all this come from? He said, the person who sent it would rather not be identified. Somebody from AA fed us that day. And they kept us going, and we got through all that, and we were struggling, my wife and I, and for about 8 months, I guess, I went into a pretty deep depression. And to tell you that, for me to get up and get dressed and take a shower was a major accomplishment. I just went to stay in bed and die. And a couple of my friends, these guys I got sober with, come over and said, Ed, you probably need some help. And it says in the big book there'll come a time in your life when AA just isn't enough and we need to seek professional help. So I sought out this rehab out in Florida called the Manors, and it was a facility that was a mental institution that also dealt with grief and loss and recovery, and that's what I needed. And I went out there and I learned about the 11th step, learned about prayer and meditation. You see, I was raised Catholic in the good old days with the fire and brimstone. God going to get you, you're going to get you. If God don't get you, I'm going to get you, but somebody going to get you. And I knew by the time I was 15, I'd been got. And they used to teach you with the milk bottle, they had the white milk and the chocolate milk, and every time you committed a sin, you got black marks and, little venial sins, stealing a nickel, and then they had the moral sins, they had purgatory. That's gone now, isn't it? Purgatory, they did away with that. Meat on Friday, that was a big one. Burning hell for meat on Friday. I wonder if that was like when they did away with that, did the guys on a meat wrap get a reprieve, But it was a challenging religion, and so my concept of God was a guy that I was afraid of, actually. It was this white-haired, bearded guy that just had this angry look on his face. And so I struggled with God, and I struggled with the steps, the God steps. And I remember my sponsor telling me, Ed, it's no coincidence that as you understood him is underlined in the 3rd and 11th step. And he said, that was your mother's God, and it really worked well for her, and maybe you need to seek out another God. I thought that was pretty interesting. And ironically, I was able to find that in the traditions, not so much in the steps, where it says, a loving God as he may express himself. Traditions are interesting. We don't spend enough time with them, I think. Somebody once said if you want to hide a $100 bill from alcoholics, stick it in the back of the 12 and 12 because they never looked there. And it talked about anonymity being the spiritual foundation of all tradition, minus about principles over personality. Anonymity. After the funeral, my wife and I sat down and we had these big shopping bags full of cards and gifts and, grief cards that these people sent us, and we decided we were going to sit down and write everybody a note and thank them. And it dawned on us, we don't even know your last name. We didn't know who to send them to or what to do with them. It's like we had all these anonymous people coming up that we we didn't know your last name, but you kept us going. You supported us. And, that's spirituality. That's his program at work. So I checked into this rehab and I started working on a God of my understanding. And we started meditating, and I learned about the 11th step. And it was meditation. It wasn't sitting there thinking about what I'm going to do today. And being the alcoholic that I am, I came home and I pursued that. I found this course called the Mastery Program, which was a biofeedback course where they teach you how to meditate, use your breath. It was 16 weeks. It was an hour a day, every day, hooked up to the equipment, meditating on my own twice a day. My insurance company's writing checks for $7,200, and they paid $7,200 for me to learn how to do nothing for an extended period of time. But it was through that process that I was able to make a conscious contact with the God of my understanding. Daniel had a drinking and a drug problem. He said, when I walked in the door that day, my wife was beating on my chest, yelling at me, saying, all them people you know, all them people you helped in AA, why couldn't you help him? And I didn't have an answer for that. And we tried. Daniel and I took a motorcycle trip cross country, went to the World Convention in Seattle. What was that, 1990? It wasn't like we didn't try. He wasn't ready. And Daniel was my stepson. I'd raised him since he was 9 years old, and his natural father, I need to say this because it became very impacting to me along the step route. His natural father hadn't talked to him in 3, 4, maybe 5 years, had no contact with him. And he came into town for the B, and I spent like 6 hours with her in the emergency room. She never said one word to me. They were angry at me because they thought it was my fault that he had a motorcycle to begin with. It was a pretty tough time. And we got through all that. I had to go identify his body. I became like the cop in this situation instead of somebody who experienced a loss. And it hurt for a long time. And after I got out of rehab, my wife and I separated. I was down in Florida on a business trip between Christmas and New Year's. And I always take the 12 and 12 in a big book with me when I travel. And I was reading the 8th and 9th steps. And it dawned on me that I was angry at a father who hadn't spent any time with his son. I was a little bit of a photographer, and I took hundreds of pictures. And, Danny and I did a couple motorcycle trips cross country, and I had pictures of them. And his father said to me, can I have them? And I said, no. You should have taken your own pictures. I was reading the 8th and 9th steps, and I realized that I was angry at somebody who just buried his firstborn son, that he didn't treat me right. And I was angry at my ex-in-laws because they were accusing me because they were angry and they didn't know where to direct their anger. And I sat down and wrote them all a letter about how sorry I was for the feelings that I was having. You see, because I was worried about how I was being treated, not the way they were feeling. And it's a powerful program. I went and dropped them letters in the mailbox. I never got a response to this day. And you know what? Doesn't matter. I had to take care of my side of the street. They were good people that experienced a horrible loss. And I was glad I could do what I did, and I'm glad I had the time I had with Daniel. His mom and I still talk. We're still good friends. But the process of the steps started to make me change my way of life, change my thinking towards things. This is a beautiful program. The second step, can and believe the power greater than itself restores the sanity. I rode down here with 8 guys from New Jersey and a Winnebago. I know none of them took that second step. There wasn't a sane person in that vehicle. Wayne said we traveled 667 miles. In 667 miles, there were 2 turns. We missed them both. And that was with a Magellan on the dashboard telling us we had to make a turn.
But you know what? I hung around with these guys, and we've all been sober 20, 25 years together. We had a miracle in that little bus coming up here. Bud back there at midnight on Friday, or Thursday, was it, Bud? Celebrated 20 years of continuous sobriety. Yeah. Now, I don't know what this section does, but back home, 20 years makes you an old-timer, means you got wisdom. I haven't seen it right away. Sometimes on your 364th day, 19 years, that you get this wisdom. And it's like, the only wisdom I ever got out of AA was I learned not to drink, and my sponsor kept telling me, do anything you want, just don't pick up a drink. And there were days when the only thing that I did right that day was didn't pick up a drink. I had a guy that sponsor call me one day. He said, Ed, I need to talk to you, man. What's the matter? He said, I just threw my wife down the steps. I hit my kids and I kicked the dog. I said, you drink? He said, no. I said, you had a good day. They had a shitty day, but... Somebody got to keep it green for them, too, you know. Yeah. But that's how simple it was. And you know what? It got to the point where we started apologizing for that kind of behavior, when we started doing an 8th and 9th step and starting to clean up the wreckage of the past. I remember telling my sponsor, I'd call him every day, Mel, I took 2 10 steps today. Oh, good for you, Al. Or Ed. Who am I today, Al? I take this anonymity to the max, man. I'd call him the next day, telling him, hey, I did 4 10 steps. Yeah, good, Ed, that's nice. Next day, I tell him, hey, I did 6 10 steps today. He said, why don't you just quit screwing up? And I was proud of that stuff. And, you know, we get into the 3rd and 11th step, and I have been a practicing Buddhist for probably the last 14 years, and active in a Buddhist temple. And, you know, I had to change the religion. I had to change that whole thought process. I had to change that fear, that angry God. And I had to find some place where I could have peace and solitude. And Buddhism is a great religion, man. It's got really no rules at all. It takes a day at a time to the max. Buddhists live a breath at a time. And we're kind of interesting people because we think living one day at a time is something we got a choice in, you know. It's like, I ain't living today, screw that, I'm going right in tomorrow. And, you know, we get away with that stuff, like, just stay in the moment. And, you know, the 3 great jewels of Buddhism is the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha is the higher power, the Dharma is the teaching, and the Sangha is the population. And if I look at AA, I got the Bill and Bob, and I got the Big Book, and I got the Sangha, the fellowship, which the fellowship is what made me stay. I fell in love with a bunch of guys. And I can tell you this, the first time I ever looked another man in the eye and told him I loved him was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Wasn't my son, wasn't my daughter, wasn't my brother or sister. It was another member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I felt loved. Because I felt like I was a part of something. And I was able to eventually get that into my house. The guy said the longest journey for these 12 steps and traditions are from these rooms into my front door. When I start treating my family the way I treat you, I have arrived. And that is the challenge. You know, when I'm sitting, we used to have, the traditions are great, and you know, we used to have regular business meetings at my kitchen table. We put the traditions to work because my wife, you know, got involved in Al-Anon, the kids were involved in Al-Teen, the dog was in Alapet. Yeah, all our mail just said resident. There was no last name.
and we'd have a group conscience meeting every Tuesday night at the dinner table, and the kids hated the seventh tradition. You finish high school, you're self-supporting through your own contribution. And each family member was autonomous, except as it affected other family members as a whole. You know, your room could be a pigsty. You come out of the kitchen, you got to do the dishes. You know, and we started to apply this into our family circle. So this program starts to eventually slip into the household. And I still struggle with the relationship stuff. I don't know. I'm starting to think it's me. After the third wife, I went to my friends. I said, you know, I think it might be me. Nah. They're the kind of people you need around you. It's the dental plan. I started dating homeless women because I found it's easier to talk them into staying overnight. And when you drop them off, you really don't care where it is. You know? Is this close enough? You know, they talk about that, and these people come out and no relationships for a year. Most of the people you hear that from are married. Some poor single guy out there, what? Thought this was about not drinking. And I researched that. It doesn't say that. It says steer clear from emotional entanglements. That meant I couldn't see my mother for a year. I joke about that. I had a very strained relationship with my mother. And during the process of the recovery, I went to, how am I doing for time, Wayne? Give me boot me out of here. I was going to counseling, and a counselor said, what's your goal? And he was a counselor that involved with recovery and knew the 12 steps of the 12. I said, my goal is to have a relationship with my mother before she dies, because it's very challenging for me. He said, how often do you see her? I said, I haven't seen her in 3 years. He said, for starters, to have a relationship, you've got to be around somebody. And he started me spending 15 or 20 minutes with her once a week and prepare myself emotionally and spiritually and psychologically to be with her. My mother was very negative. My mother had a very tough life, and I'm not accusing her of anything. God rest her soul. She did a wonderful job with what the tools she had. She didn't have Al-Anon. She didn't have AA. She didn't have the help we got today. I was raised in that generation where everything that happened in the house stayed in the house. You didn't take it outside. I started spending 15 minutes a week, turned into a half-hour a week, turned into an hour a week, turned into a couple hours a week, turned into every other day, turned into my mom coming to me and me being her sole caretaker before she died for the last 3 years of her life. It was a matter of me stepping up to the plate. It was a matter of me getting the courage from you people to do what I had to do, to have these relationships with people that really, really, truly did the best they can. And the only thing I can say, especially to Al-Anon people, is we didn't mean it. We're sorry, you know. and truly, I never meant to hurt anybody. Never. That was never my goal. My goal was to be a gentleman. A man with dignity, a man with some spirituality, and as a result of hanging with you people today, I'm a gentleman. I am eternally grateful to Alcoholics Anonymous when we were trying to send them thank you cards out to you people and didn't know your last names. I made a commitment that any time I had an opportunity to share that I would thank you. Thank you, 1,000 thank yous. Because it was such a devastating time that I didn't know how to survive it. And the irony of it was not once did I think of picking up a drink. That wasn't even an option. Wasn't a thought. Roland Trainer sat in my kitchen. He said, Ed, you know, this is one of the times where if you drank, nobody would blame you. He said,
But if the pain would go away, we would all have one drink with you. And there was a lot of sobriety in that kitchen. A lot of sobriety. And the point he made was a drink won't make a difference. It'll just make it worse. And, as a result of those guys, and you find people on the 12 steps, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts of Alcoholics Anonymous, and wonderful gatherings like this, you people sure do got some southern hospitality down here. I don't know how you can put out that kind of food and the accommodations we got for $15. The next vehicle I'll be down here with is a moving van. Tomorrow night you're going to hear a speaker, LB. He's the guy I called when Daniel died and came over to my house, and I thought I'd tell his story tonight. That way tomorrow night we'd just go right to the dance. But we've been friends for over 20 years. I got to tell you a funny story, because he's the first guy I ever sponsored in AA. I chaired a meeting at this Mount Ephraim group, and I was only 8 or 9 months old myself, and at that time he had a full head of hair and beard. He was a biker guy, weighed about 98 pounds, no teeth, boots, chains and shit, leather coat, and come crawling up in front of the room, says, "Will you be my sponsor?" And I said, "Well, I said, yeah, but I really don't want you around my kids." And he's dual addicted. I'm a pure alcoholic. I never used drugs, and I used to bring him over to the house and show the kids, it's a junkie. And they'd run around the neighborhood, "My daddy got the junkie." And you know what I say? I'm a pure alcoholic because there really aren't many left in the rooms. A lot of the cross addiction and all. I just use alcohol. And, I smoked some pot in the Navy, but pretty much I was pure alcoholic. And I did a little bit of cocaine, but I was strictly experimental. Then there was the Librium, the Valium, the Percocet. But other than that, I'm a pure alcoholic, and I'm proud of it. To Wayne Lasik, congratulations on meeting such a wonderful new family of alcoholics, and I hope that they embrace you the way we did in New Jersey. Thank you for inviting me to be here. Namaste.
Everybody, my name's Ed. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Ed.
Senator Jefferson, did the rent go up at all? Or still paying right? I'm so happy to be here, and truly, because it's a journey. I wasn't supposed to be here. In fact, I wasn't supposed to be here past Christmas. I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer and was told I had 6 months to live. And Judy kept calling saying, "You sure you're going to make it? You sure you're going to make it?" So I'm here, but I'm not taking any more commitments after this. We really got a day at a time compartments here, but I don't know how to tell you how grateful I am. It's so good to see so many people here that I know and haven't seen in a while, and some that I see pretty regularly. And it's just been an awesome journey for me, and to be here tonight is like such a special gift, and I thank you and the committee for inviting me to share this anniversary with you. I guess it's a step meeting, so Judy recommended I refer to the steps at some point in my recovery program. So I'll start out with step 1. And I came into AA at 25, didn't get it, came back at 35, and was ready. And back when I was 25 and came in here, it was a whole different environment. They didn't tolerate much, what wasn't sure if I was an alcoholic. It's like, go drink. They'd give you $20. Here, go finish your load. Come back when you're ready. And I remember sitting around here at first. I guess I was sober about 8 or 9 months, and just hated every minute of it. And they'd bring up topics, and if anybody had a topic, and I'd always bring up slips. The guy said to me, "Do you want to know how to have one or not have one?" and the one thing I learned about slips was, if you want one, you need to stop coming here. That's critical. You can't go to meetings and not have a slip. So I stopped coming to meetings, and they told me to finish my load and come back when I was ready. And 10 years later, I came back and I was ready. And I remember my sponsor. I got a sponsor my first day back at that meeting, and he said to me, "How old are you?" I said, I'm 35. He said, New York did a survey, and according to their study, 35 was the best year for somebody to get sober. And I thought, wow, that's freaking awesome. And we were at another meeting, and he said to the guy, "How old are you?" He said, "I'm 42. He said, World Service did a survey. They determined that 42 was the best year to get sober. So whatever age you are, it's the best year to get sober. And that boy would be my sponsor for the next 14 years. His name was Mel Hapsey, and man, what a gift he was, and he's the only guy in AA that really truly lied to me. He used to tell me, and I was telling Kevin last night, he lived in Woodbury, I lived in Williamstown, and he would tell me, "Look, I'm going to a meeting, I'll run right past your house. Why don't I stop and pick you up?" It's like, okay. I don't know how he went from Woodbury to Williamstown when the meeting was in Collingswood, and he passed my house. So I caught on that he was making shit up, that I was just, but that was good old-fashioned 12-step work back then. We didn't hand out a meeting list and everybody signed their name. They handed you a meeting list and said, "Go get names and numbers. If you hear somebody you like, go ask them for their number." And so things have changed, and the program stayed the same, but I think some of us have lost the enthusiasm or the energy, haven't passed this on, that asking them for their phone number, the newcomer, is really a good way to go. And I remember saying to my sponsor, "What if they don't want you to call?" He said, "They won't give you the right number." It's like, okay, that makes sense. And so the journey started for me, and we got on the first step. And I'm a retired cop from Camden. I'm retired from the military with 20 years. Vietnam vet, didn't serve in Vietnam, but was in the military during Vietnam. And the word powerless was really a tough pill to swallow for me. I really struggled with it. And I remember trying to figure out, what this thing meant. And I was at a meeting in Woodbury, the old Tuesday noon meeting, and I heard somebody say that the first step was like World War II. Japan surrendered unconditionally to the United States after World War II. And the promise that we made to Japan was, if you stop fighting us, we will help you rebuild your cities and rebuild your economy and get you back. And that's what we did. And today Japan's one of the wealthiest countries in the world. AA made me that same promise. Take the gloves off, stop fighting, and we'll help you rebuild your life. And the journey started there. And so surrender to win made sense to me. Surrender to win. I had to add that to the powerlessness that I had. The second step was, can you believe that a paragrader myself could restore me to sanity? Well, there's two parts to that. One was a paragrader than myself, and the other one was I had to admit I was insane. And I knew I wasn't because I had spent time at Ancora and they let me go. So I had documentation to prove that I was not insane. And he said little shit like, did you ever really get sick from drinking and get in trouble and swear you'd never do that again? And then you would do it again? I said, yeah. He said, that's insane. It's like, oh, that's simple, huh? So, okay, I'm insane. This paragrader and myself started to become new people. And God wasn't talked about much between him and I. He knew that I struggled with it, and he never pushed that issue on me. And when we got to the third step, the word God jumped out, and I read Bill's story. And the two things that helped me in the very beginning was the doctor's opinion and Bill's story. They were the two things that I grabbed onto, and it really helped me identify my alcoholism and that search for this power. And I think it's early in Bill's story, page 9, 10, 11, where he talks about his struggle with this God concept, an absolute struggle, to a point where he makes the statement that I had absolute contempt for the word God. That's a pretty strong line, that he absolutely had contempt for the word God. But he described a higher power in 7 or 8 different folds. The spheres are in alignment, and what his grandfather used to tell him. And his grandfather seemed to be the catalyst for that. It's like he didn't buy in what the preachers were saying at church. He just knew that there was something bigger and better out there that was taking care of things. And that was good enough for Bill. And Bill was doing a lot of 12-step work in his early recovery. And I hear conflicts in AA, if you don't want to hear about God, don't go to the meeting because we talk about God and that. Doctor, when Bill started his 12-step work, he really struggled. He wasn't real successful his first times out at that. And he had probably 12-step, maybe 100 people. And he was always introducing this spiritual awakening that he had. He would talk about this flash of light, the spiritual awakening that brought him to recovery. And he was talking to Dr. Silkworth about his struggle with this. He said, nobody's getting this, Doc. And Doc said, you know what, Bill, why don't you leave the God thing alone for a little bit? Why don't you talk drunk to the drunk and then introduce God? And that's what they did with me. They just allowed me to be a drunk first and then introduce this higher power, this concept of a God of my understanding. I practice an alternate religion today. I'm a practicing Buddhist, and so our concept of a higher power or God is different. It's just different. But Bill talks about the religions and how it affected him adversely to the various religions. So I found this power, this program, this religion. Somebody said, is Buddhism a religion or a philosophy? And they said, yes. Whatever you want to call it. And so I love practicing the teachings of the Buddha. I love the teachings of the Christ. I love the teachings of Muhammad. They all say the same thing Bill and Bob said. Don't hurt each other, love each other, support each other. Just what you were talking about, that community. I found something in here that I didn't find anywhere else. I didn't find it in church. I didn't find it in temple. I found that fellowship, that camaraderie, that compassion that I never felt anywhere than when I came into AA. So now I'm looking at this fellowship as being a power greater than myself. This fellowship was strong. The people I met were doing something that I wanted. They were happy, and I wanted a piece of the action. And in order for me to do that, I had to grab onto some coattails and start this journey. And we got into the fourth step, and he was pretty funny about it. I listed, my fourth step listed a bunch of shit I did when I was drunk. And he told me to just forget about all that. He said, don't put anything down from your drinking days. He said, because this is a moral inventory. And when you're drinking, you have no morals. So you can't inventory that. When you're drinking, you're capable of murder, rape, you're capable of anything. Put down what you do when you're not drinking. That's what your morals are. What are you doing when you're not drinking? So start with your sobriety and work backwards. And so my fourth step started to get adjusted along the way. When I looked at, he kept me in the big book. He kind of kept me out of this step book. Back then we didn't use the step book quite as much. And the only time he referred me to the step book was during the fourth step. He told me to look at step 6. Because 6 actually laid out all these defects and all these issues that we have. And so I was able to start looking at the fourth. We did my fourth and fifth together. He actually sat down with me, and we did my fourth and fifth together. It took maybe 2 hours. And it cracks me up because I hear people say, they went to the Poconos for 2 weeks, locked themselves in a cabin, took their computer and, started working on it. You know what your defects are. Don't take no 4 days in a day. And if you're not sure, ask your spouse or your partner. Because they'll glaze right over that shit. They'll help you a lot. You know, they'll jot shit down that you didn't even think about it. So my fourth and fifth were kind of combined. I mean, it wasn't a separate occasion. We just worked on it together. He didn't send me off somewhere. And so we got to the sixth and seventh. And again, in the big book, the sixth step is 3 paragraphs. Very, very cut and dry. It's a prayer. The seventh step is 1 paragraph. It's actually 7 lines long. And at the end of it, it says, you have just completed step 7. So, of course, if I look at the step book and I go back, and I think that's where he kept it so simple for me. Because when I started to integrate the step book, it started to get muddled for me when it was so basic with the 12s, with the big book. And you got to remember, the first 12 years of AA didn't have a step book. Everything was out of the big book. Everything was just handed down. The 12 steps weren't written until they were sober 12 years. So I kind of appreciated the fact that it was so simple. You're up next. So we got into step 8. Step 8 was interesting for me. I retired. I owned a go-go bar when I came into the program. I don't recommend that. But my 8th step had a lot of go-go dancers, barmaids, drunken customers. And he looked at me, and he looked at my 8th step list, and he said, were you a big tipper, Ed? You look like a big tipper. I said, oh, yeah, always a big tipper. He said, well, you don't know them shit. He said, they get paid to tolerate your ass. He said, I don't see your mother on there. It's like, oh, do I need to put her on there too? It's like, I had all these peripheral stuff that were pretty insignificant on this 8-step list. And when I started to get to the nitty-gritty, when I started to talk about my parents and my daughter and my siblings and the damage we did there, and the list started to make more sense to me. And that 8th step became, the 8th and 9th step became such freedom for me. Such freedom that I can't describe. When I started to look at the people that I had offended and hurt and caused damage to in the 8th and 9th steps, and started to really truly make amends and reach out to them and truly apologize and ask them, what can I do to correct this? That was part of that. It wasn't just saying, I'm really sorry, can you forgive me? It was like, what can I do to correct this situation? And is there anything I forgot? And it was very emotional, very impacted, and it was very much received in a positive way, except for one person who told me, thanks, I hope you never drink again, but you can drop dead. I could care less about you for what you did to me and my brother. And so, you know, I was willing to be forgiven. The rest is up to them. And my sponsor made that clear. I had a responsibility to take care of my side of the street, to give it to them and allow them to process it and give it back at whatever level they're at. And, you know, when I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, it was in June, and I was told I got 3 to 6 months to live. And you really do some scrambling when you got 3 to 6 months to live. There was a lot of shit I had to take care of. And I was running around, but one of the things that gave me the absolute peace with all that was the 8th and 9th steps. Was that I could lay my head on a pillow knowing that I had taken care of business, that I didn't owe anybody. And that was a big deal, a really big deal. You know, somebody asked the Buddha what happens after you die, and he said he doesn't talk about things he doesn't know anything about. But one of the things he said was, I will promise you that if you follow this path, you will find nirvana on your deathbed. And that's what I found. I found peace. Even though my life expectancy was very much shortened, I knew that there was peace. I knew that I had taken care of business. And when I tell you that 8th and 9th will free you, I can go anywhere, be with anybody, do anything, and know that I either took care of business or I was willing to. And so all I can say is that 8th and 9th followed me ultimately to what I considered my deathbed, to where it became that significant to me. The 10th step was, he told me that once I completed the first 9, that I didn't have to go back anymore. If I did 10, 11, and 12, I would include those. 10 included the 4th step, it included the 5th step, it included the 8th and 9th step. They're there in the 10th step. You're doing that on a regular basis. And so doing that inventory, and he told me the 10 steps are always appropriate, regardless of whatever step you might be on, no matter how long you're sober. Look at the end of the day and see if there's anything you need to make amends for, anything you need to change when you do that inventory at the end of the day. The 11th step kind of eluded me because here we come up with this prayer and meditation thing, and I don't pray, and by that I mean there's no petition attached to our prayers. There's no petition. It's not asking for things. We don't pray to hit the lottery. Somebody said, who's going to win the game at the Super Bowl? The team that prayed the hardest are the ones who showed up for practice every day. And so prayer without works is dead. So it was a matter of praying and doing the work. And so my wife and I, in my 10th year of sobriety in 1992, lost our child, a 23-year-old, got killed in a motorcycle accident. I'm 10 years sober. She was in Al-Anon. The kids were in Alateen. The dog was in Alapet. Everybody had a program. And I wasn't doing well. I stayed sober, never thought about a drink, never entered my mind. But my confreres, my inner circle, saw that I wasn't doing well. I would go to a meeting, I'd sit in the back, I wouldn't share, and I'd leave. And they got together about 10 months after the end of that and said, listen, Ed, you need to go away. You need professional help. You're not handling this well. It tells us in the big book that the day will come when we need to reach out and seek professional help. But this just ain't going to work. So I worked in the field for a while, and I found this facility in Florida called the Manors. It was a psychiatric hospital with a substance abuse component attached to it. And I didn't want to go to a rehab. I didn't need to write an essay on the first step. I didn't need to do all that. I needed to learn how to deal with grief and loss. I had no concept on how to do it. Now, mind you, before Daniel died, I had buried my father. I had buried 2 brothers, and we were taught, you walk past the coffin, you say goodbye to your dad, I don't want to see a bunch of tears. You walk past the coffin, you say goodbye to your brother, I don't want to see a bunch of tears. You walk past the coffin, well, when you're drinking and partying, there ain't a lot of tears. You just say, bye, Dad, bye, Sonny, bye, Ronnie, and you wave, and that's it. Didn't work this time. That wasn't going to happen. And so I got into this rehab, and part of the treatment was that we did meditation 3 times a day. We would do meditation on our own in the morning. It was facilitated in the afternoon, and then we would do it again in the evening before we retired. So we were meditating 3 times a day. It was during one of the meditations, one of the facilitated meditations, where I was able to make contact with Daniel. And my last words to Daniel, he was drinking and drugging, and he would come to the house, and one of the rules in the house was you don't come here under the influence. And he had come to the house drunk, and my last words to him was, God damn it, Daniel, I hate you when you do this. Now, I'm sure all he heard me say was, God damn it, I hate you. That's not what I meant to say. What I meant to say was, I really love you, son, but your behavior scares me. That's what I meant to say, but that's not how it came out. And so I'm dealing with this pain of having this conversation with this guy, and I was able through meditation to have a contact with him, to have what I considered a spiritual moment where he and I were together, and it was all good. I can tell you it was all good. There was a lot of forgiveness, and I remember curling up like a child in the fetal position, just crying and sobbing, and the facilitator he was a big black guy. He had to be 6'5", 300 pounds, wearing a Pierre Cardin suit, an Ole Cassini tie, and a Van Heusen shirt, and Florsheim shoes. And he came over to me and he said, "Can I hold you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he picked me up and he just rocked me. And I never felt that anywhere ever. And he just held me till I just stopped crying and I could catch my breath. And you know the kind of crying I'm talking about, that, you know, where you can't catch your breath, where the snot's coming down and all over his Pierre Cardin suit. Screwed up his Ole Cassini tie. But that's his problem. He asked me. And I was able to get this breakthrough. And so meditation became a big, big part of my recovery, to a point where when I got out of treatment, I took a course called the Mastery Program, where I was hooked up to biofeedback equipment and a heart monitor and I would meditate every day. I would show up at the facility, I'd meditate for an hour, I'd go sit in my car, I'd meditate. Until, you know, alcoholics cost my insurance company $7,200 for me to learn how to do absolutely nothing for an extended period of time. And I worked for Bosher for a while, and he'll tell you it works. I did absolutely nothing for an extended period of time. But that 11th step now came home to me. It made sense. And when I looked at it, and I looked at Bill and Bob and the first 100 men and women who developed this program, they took the best of the best from all the great religions. All the great religions, the Buddha, the Mahatma, the Pope, they meditate. They meditate on a daily basis. And that is part of what we have to do. We need to take that quiet time, and I needed to learn how to do that. And once you learn how to do it, and once you're successful at it, man, you won't let go of it. It really becomes an integral part of your life. We got to the 12th step, and I shared a meeting at the old Mount Ephraim group, and I was sober, I think, 7 or 8 months. And Bosher was in the room, and after the meeting, he come up to me. Now, you got to see what Bosher looked like back then. He had long hair that was not combed or groomed. He had a beard that had fruit in it from last week. He may or may not have had his teeth in at the time. Had boots on and chains hanging off of him and shit. And, come stomping up to the front of the row. He said, "Will you be my sponsor?" It's like, I said, "All right." I said, "But I don't want you around my kids." and we started this journey together. We've been together for 35 years, me and this man, without a bad word between us ever. That's amazing. I can't say that about any family member or any other person in my life, that we started this journey together. And that is when you do the first 9 steps again. The 9 steps start to come into action when you sponsor somebody, and you take them through the steps, and you start this journey. And Al was a junkie, and I didn't know nothing about drugs. I was a cop, and I remember bringing him home and introducing him to my kids, and the kids were all excited, like, "Daddy got a junkie, Daddy got a junkie." They wanted to take him to show and tell. So he had a rough time with it. Needless to say, we've been on this journey together, and it's been a wonderful journey, and we've shared the grief of burying family members and the joy of watching them be born and christened and weddings, and it's just been the gift that you talk about, this camaraderie, this compassion that we have for each other. I'm an ex-cop, he's an ex-con. We've got nothing in common other than this disease. And this disease has held us together all this time and taken us on this journey. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the traditions. I love the traditions, and they are such an integral part of my recovery. We look at the 12 and 12, and I think we forget that it says 12 and 12. It's the other half of our program. The traditions are that significant, and they kind of get brushed aside. And I had a tradition sponsor the first 6 months I was sober. Her name was Jacqueline Coy, and she took me through the traditions, and we started looking at how they apply to my personal life, how they apply to my professional life, how do they apply to Alcoholics Anonymous. The 12th tradition says that anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, reminding us to place principles before personalities. it's not about my last name at a meeting. Got very little to do. In fact, Dr. Bob said that not using our last name sometimes he thinks is anti-12 tradition because we really don't know each other. We truly don't. You know, when we had an old fellow, some of you remember, Bitchin' John, and Bitchin' John was in the hospital, and everybody would say, yeah, Bitchin' John's sick, he's in the hospital. So we went to West Jersey, and she said, who are you here to see? We said, we just know him as Bitchin' John. She said, well, he's down the hall. So they know who Bitchin' John was, too. So not knowing our last names is really cheating ourselves out of. You know, when you say somebody's sick and they're in a hospital or they died, you don't even know how to look up the obituary. My last name's Jordan. So when I die, look under the obituary. I've already made the funeral arrangements. I know where it's going to be. I just haven't picked the date yet. So we're settled on that. During that time of when Daniel died, I picked up the phone and I made one phone call. And I called Al B. He was at work. I said, Al, Daniel got killed this morning. And he said, okay, I'll be right there. And he went in and told his boss he had to leave because his friend needed him. And he showed up at my house, and I don't know if he ever left. I truly don't. I know that every time I turned around, Al-B was there with me. And he helped me through this journey, along with the rest of it. I mean, my house was full of AA people and Al-Anon people and Al-Anon people, and they plugged in the coffee pot. They went shopping and filled up our refrigerator, and they went to help us pick out the coffee and buy clothes for this boy. And, you know, all the biker dudes. I was a biker for years and years. I used to do cross-country trips on a motorcycle. Now I walk around a block with a fucking cane. And that's a struggle. But all these people showed up and started to just do wonderful things. My wife and I sat down. This is 4 or 5 days after the funeral. We were exhausted. We had about 8 or 9 family members in from the West Coast, and we were all sitting around the house, and we were hungry, but nobody wanted to cook, and nobody wanted to go out. And this van pulled up in my driveway, and they started unloading pasta and meatballs and sausage and bread and dessert and coffee and fruit, and just kept bringing all this food in. And I said to the driver, who sent all this? And he said, the person asked not to be identified. That's anonymity. That's the spiritual foundation of anonymity. What are we doing for each other anonymously that you don't even know somebody did? I don't know who answered the phone the first time I made a call to Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know the names of half the people that have touched my life over the 35 years. I know my wife and I sat down with this shopping bag full of cards and gifts and grief cards and mass cards, and we decided we would sit down and just spend a day thanking everybody. And we opened them up, we realized we didn't even know your last name. How are we going to thank you? We don't even know who you are. You know, it's like Bob F. and Jimmy J. And so we just laughed and put them all back in the shopping bag and decided we would just say thank you every time we shared, because we really did need you in our lives, and you showed up. Like that 12 tradition says, this very spiritual foundation of our traditions. I know in my heart and soul, and Bill Wilson knew it, Bill had this awesome spiritual awakening with the flashing light and the wind on the mountaintop and the spiritual electric that went through his body, but he couldn't get it without Bob. Until he met Bob in his life, this wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. And so I know in my heart and soul that whatever my spiritual beliefs are, whatever my religious beliefs are, whatever my concept of a higher power is, without you guys, without you people, I ain't got a shot. I can't do it. Believe me, I tried any way I could to avoid being around. Look around you. Who wants to be with you guys? I mean, really. But no, you're beautiful. I just, I know that I need you more than ever. And when I was diagnosed with this cancer business, I started posting on Facebook, and the responses I got, I cannot tell you how encouraging it was for me, and continues to be. There are days that I just didn't want to go to chemo anymore. I was so sick from the chemotherapy. And I would read these posts, hang in there, Ed, we love you, we're supporting you, we're praying for you. And I would go to chemo. And I tell you, without a doubt, without you, I would have probably quit. As a result of the chemo failed, the radiation failed, but they had this new treatment called immunotherapy. So if I don't shake your hands, it's because my immune system's really messed up, and so I'm kind of doing fist bumps and elbows and hugs, and I still do open mouth kissing, but that's just between Al and I. But this immunotherapy has slowed the process down, and it's given me more time. And so it was failing at the other attempts that I made. And until I did the chemo, until I did the radiation, they couldn't even begin to subject me to this other treatment, this Opdivo. So I had to fail at those things in order to get to where I am today. And it's just been, like I said, it's been an amazing journey. When Judy first contacted me, it was really touch and go. We weren't sure. We just weren't sure. And the last report I got was that the lymph node in my abdomen has returned to its normal size, and the lumps in my lungs are shrinking. Yay, team. So who knows? Yeah, thanks. I know that my life is richer because I know you, because you're in my life, and without that, I couldn't make it. I have a wonderful young lady with me who we've been together for the last 10 years, has no obligation to me at all, but continues to help take care of me, allows me to mentor her 10-year-old son. For the last 10 years, I've been a part of his life, and I got a real dilemma. I was telling Al, I've always told him you can be anything you want to be. Well, Super Bowl Sunday, he told me he wants to be a lesbian. So I don't know what the fuck to do now. Do I take it back? Do I tell him no, that ain't going to work? So I'll be talking to somebody after the meeting how to handle this. But he's the best, man. He brings sunshine to my life. He's the guy that, when I'm sleeping at night, I'll hear him get up to go to the bathroom, and he'll come in to make sure the covers are on me. And I can never repay you. If I live to be 100 and go to meetings every day, I can never repay you what you've given me. And that's the ability to go for one more day without a drink. And for that, I'm forever grateful. Congratulations to the group. Thank you so much for
Eddie, and please accept this gift as appreciation for your message of recovery.
Thank you so much.
We have till 8:30, so if anybody wanted to share with Eddie here, please take this time to do that. It's an hour meeting. You could have talked longer.
Yeah.
But they can talk to you now.
You wouldn't want to hear what I had left to say.
Al can start us off.
Yeah, Al, start us off.
My name's Al.
Yeah.
Dave, it's hard to even put it into words. You talked about Bill's story. And, Bill would be at his darkest moment. He would take his mattress off the second floor bedroom and drag it downstairs. Because he was afraid he was going to jump out the window. He's drinking 2 bottles of gin a day. They had tucked in just to keep the demons away. And his life was really dark. Somebody knocks at his door. And it would alter his life. And Bill would write about that experience later. He would break the door open, and there he stood, fresh-skinned and glowing. There was something about his eyes. He was inexplicably different. What had happened? Bill ran with Evie, so he knew how Evie drank. Bill couldn't explain what the hell happened to Evie with that knock on the door. Evie had not even opened up his mouth yet, and would transmit such a powerful message to what would become one of our co-founders. It would save my life later on down the line. And we're not having it. You know that. Bill would write also in his story. His perception would have that. And he said he had in effect been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. That's my experience. Thank you. A power far greater than myself that they're a path crossed. I'm a better human being. That's what it's always. Thanks.
I got there.
My name's Jim, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Jim.
You said we don't know each other, but we know each other's pain. And like I said to Nick earlier, if you don't know bad, you don't appreciate good. And the joy you get, like coming here, walking in, is a feeling that you can't express unless you've been there. You know, you've been there and you got pain. And you're on this track to get well every day, you know, like I said, one day at a time. And then just to throw in the Super Bowl the other day, like, you know, just was always drunk or whatever. It was just so nice to take in things with a straight mind and a feeling that, you know, you're doing better than yesterday. And it's just, you know, we're only visiting this planet, and before I take the dirt nap, I take it every day, one day at a time, and appreciate it. I'm so grateful for my brothers and sisters that are here with me today. That's all I wanted to say.
My name's Erica. I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful I didn't have to drink last night. And Kim got out of some step work tonight because you were speaking, so she's really grateful. Yeah, I heard that you were speaking tonight, and I said, "Come on, we're going." I'm really glad that we came, and I've heard you share before several times, and I just want to let you know that, like, I'm paying attention. Okay? I feel like when I came in, I don't know if it's like where I got sober or the people or the time period, but it's almost like some kind of transitional period. Like, there was lots of old-time women there, and I almost feel like they were waiting for me to get there, you know? And I came, and I took direction, and I was paying attention then, too. And I take it very seriously. And I see that what you were talking about, how like some things in AA have changed. I don't see them as prevalently as you have, but I can definitely see that. And I see how attitudes are different from people that are new than the ladies that taught me. And I try to keep the traditions incorporated in our step work. And I remember what they told me, because those things kept me sober. And they made sure I met people like you and Al, and that, you know, they would say, get in the car. We're going to the diner. Where we go, it doesn't matter. You be ready. I'll be there at 6 o'clock and you be ready. And I was ready, you know. And they also told me, if you're not willing, there's 10 girls behind you that are. So I did not, even at that time, like I knew that would be a real mistake not to be ready. And I did the best I could. And now most of them are gone, and I'm doing my best to carry it the same way. So I just want you to know that, and I wanted to say that out loud, because it is a big deal. And I, you know, I tell the girls often that I live in 10, 11, and 12, but I can't do 1 through 9 without you. Like, you got to sit with me so we can open the book. Yeah. I can make coffee, I can give rides, I can answer the phone, and I do all those things too, to the best of my ability, but I can't do 1 through 9 sitting here looking at 10, 11, and 12. It's just not possible. So, and I always thank them for keeping me sober because I can't do it without them. So, but I learned that all from you and the people that came before me. So, thank you for being
Thanks
here.
so much.
Thanks for
You're
sharing.
welcome.
Sam Lou, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Lou.
You know, thank you, Ed. You know, like Al was saying, like the gratitude that I have for like the friendship and the personal relationship that you and I have, it just like cannot be expressed in words at all. Like every time if I ever try and explain it in words, I always fall short on what it truly means to me. You know, it's like when I met you, you know, it's like I had a wonderful foundation of like the steps in my life. You know, but like I was missing that other half of the program, the traditions. You know, it's like, and just by, you know, like going to that traditions meeting and like following you and just you showing me how the traditions can be applied in my life in all aspects of it. You know, it's like, it's really brought me to like a whole nother dimension of living. And, you know, it's like a relationship with my parents, the way that I'm able to be a man of business, and to have the beautiful relationship that I have with the love of my life. I'm about to ask to marry. And when you were diagnosed with everything, I mean, it made me think back, but like just being able to be there for you the way I have been. You know, like my grandfather had stage 4 lung cancer. When I was 12 or 13 years old, when I was too young to really comprehend what was going on, or really be of much help because he was down in Florida all the time where he lived. It really brings me to like being able to help you out as almost like an amends that I owe to them. You know, it's like you know, it's just like such like a wonderful time that we've had together. It's like when you had your CAT scan and like you were given like longer with us than originally intended. I told my dad, and my dad was really happy about that. And my dad said to me, he was like, next time that you talk to Ed, he was like, let him know that I already got my suit pressed for his funeral. Now I'm going to have to put it back in the closet. In a couple of years, I'm going to have to pay for it to get pressed again. So he's like, financially, he's like, this could not have come at the best time. But you know, it's like, my dad's like known you for however many years now, and it's like it's just awesome that we're able to live this life, and you know, it's like be able to joke about stuff like that, you know, just have a good laugh. I love it.
I love you too. Thanks, sir. My grandchildren, I met with my grandchildren, and we were talking about the funeral arrangements, and I said, look, what do you guys want? It's your funeral. I'm not going to be there. You know, you want to and we had this very intense dialogue, and my grandson said, you know, Poppy, if we have a big funeral, you got a lot of friends, he said, and I wonder if we could sell fast track bracelets for $9.95 so people could get ahead of the line. And they just came back from Disney, so that's where his head was. So we ended up just like Louisville. We went from this sorrowful, sad moment to laughing about fast track passes. And people actually ordered them. Fortunately, there's no expiration date, so you can use them anytime.
So I told you when you said the treatment was working, that that's not a good thing, that they're never going to find these fast track passes in 2 years. They'll have to buy more.
No refunds.
So it's going to be a real money making for your grandson.
Yeah, okay, Rich.
I'm Rich, I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Rich.
And, you know, I remember we were talking about who should we get for a speaker for our anniversary, and Judy brought up, she said, well, what about Eddie J? And everybody said, yeah, Eddie J. It was like, what a business meeting decision. They never happen like that. You know, it was unanimous, and it was spontaneous, and there was no doubt in the room, so we really appreciate that you came. We really appreciate it more that you made it. And I know you know we had to back up.
That's nice to hear. Was there any money laid out at the an over-under?
But you know, you were one of the first guys I met when I came here to New Jersey. I don't know, in '97, '96, something like that. And you know, I've always enjoyed, you know, hearing you speak and hanging. We went on a couple of rides together. You've got a great, wonderful sense of humor. I'm sure you've heard that many times, but you know, I just wanted to add that, you know, there's a lot of meat behind your sense of humor. Sometimes presenting a very difficult topic, the best way to do it is to get people to smile and to laugh. And you're fantastic with that. But you know, you can always hear what's in your heart. And you're not up there just to make jokes. And my first sponsor, he told me, we come to AA to tell on ourselves. And you're a great example of that. You know, you've shared so many things about your experience in sobriety. I haven't heard a whole hell of a lot about your drunk-along, but in sobriety, you can tell it's been a hell of a ride, and you've learned how to be a human, a man, how to be happy, how to be joyous and free. You're still learning, probably, after 35 years. And it's a great way to share with people that are first coming in, or, you know, even people with 20, 30 years, you know, how it works. It never stops. We learn something new about ourselves every day, and we have not one qualm in sharing it with other people in AA instead of keeping it a big freaking secret. Thank you for
Thanks,
that.
Rich. If you want to hear my drug along, you're going to go to Al-Anon.
Hi.
No, go ahead.
Thanks,
We got time. The boss is here. She won't kick us out.
No, I just, I haven't been in a meeting in a while. My name's Jordan.
Hey, Jordan.
Yeah, I've been in a while. But it's just good to be back and everything. You know, I'm scared to raise my hand, but I was listening to everybody share, and everyone's sharing from their heart and the Lord my God. And it's just nice to hear that. You know, and this is the longest time I've ever had. I have over 400 days clean sober. I just had a back surgery, so I've been just laying around my house for the past couple months. It's been really tough. Just sitting on my head, you know, and my sponsor got me out tonight, and my surroundings is really, I live in an Oxford house, and it's really just an egotistical environment with everyone just trying to be, cool and this and that, and I talk about, no one really wants to talk about God or the program, and I'm sitting here and I'm hearing people talk about what's deep in their hearts and what's really meaningful, and this lady in the front left that shared about happiness, really hit home, you know what I mean, about what true happiness is. And I've been sitting in my room miserable, just can't wait till I eventually get to physical therapy so my back feels better, or I can't wait till I graduate from college, or when I get this, I'll finally be there, or when this finally happens, I can't wait to get there because my life will feel better and I'll be happy when I get this. And it's really about just the relationships, and I live with people, but I don't have good relationships with them. Everyone's really finding out for themselves, and I'm in this room, and I'm seeing people I can build beautiful relationships with. You know what I mean? I'm hearing people speak from their hearts and they're talking about God, and I'm just seeing what God did through their lives. And, through this whole surgery, I've kind of just lost sight of a lot of things, and, I still, pray, and I go back and forth with my faith. You know what I mean? It's really hard to keep that conscious contact with God. When I feel Him, man, I feel Him strong in my heart. I feel motivated, and I feel that all is filled. And I just want more of that. You know what I mean? And when it's filled, and you can feel God's presence working in your life, it's a beautiful thing. And God speaks through people, and tonight I'm listening, and it you know, I feel like the Holy Spirit inside me is like jumping out, like, you know, raise your hand, dude. You know, you gotta talk. I haven't talked in so long. It was just like unfamiliar again. You know, I went from speaking and like, you know, like being the chairperson of the meeting. That was terrifying, but I did it, to not wanting to raise my hand at the meeting, and you know, it just kind of brought a light to Alcoholics Anonymous tonight. And your story was very inspiring. It was just true. It was honest. It was emotional, and you let it all out. And just appreciate that. Appreciate everyone that shared and everything to you. And that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, would you please read the promises?
I'm Gary, an alcoholic. Promises. If we are painstaking about the